Hey everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Jake and Mike Know Nothing. And today, we're going to talk about The Righteous Gemstones, a nice little TV program on a network, I don't know, maybe you've heard of it, HBO.
The home box office.
Yeah, it's pretty good. The Righteous Gemstones is produced by Danny McBride, created by him rather, has John Goodman in it. It is, well, you're a big fan of the show.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of the show since the first episode. I was a little bit leery of it because I thought it was moving slowly. The end of the first episode, I could not stop laughing. And of course, the second, third episode, I feel like it's built up. You have the advantage that you've watched the fourth episode where I have not. But I feel like they put together a nice little story of how obviously horrible the evangelical preachers can be in this world, or obviously going off of some of the other noted evangelical preachers that have kind of taken money back from the church and from the people and put it back into their pockets.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who don't know, The Righteous Gemstones is basically, making fun of religion and these big super churches that make a ton of money. I like that whole premise. That to me is kind of funny.
Yeah, you have the first episode where they're over in China and they're in it looks like a wave pool at an amusement park.
Yeah.
And they're baptizing all these Chinese people and they start splashing water on each other. You're just like, this is ridiculous. And then somebody gets their camera out to start videotaping. No, you got to get the camera. And they think that they're signaling for them to start partying. So all of a sudden the wave pool goes off and it's just strobe lights and a DJ and stuff. It was pretty funny, man. I like the show. I love the characters, dude. There's a lot of really solid acting so far. I feel like a lot of good character development.
The first episode is an hour long, and every episode after that is around 30 minutes, give or take a couple. The first episode I watched, I was actually interested enough to where I was hoping that they were all an hour long. And then the second episode, I was just like, my God, I'm glad this isn't an hour because it didn't hold my attention. I think there's too much Danny McBride in it.
There's too much Danny for you?
Yeah. It's just, you could see that his hands are all over the whole project. And I mean, rightfully so. It's his. I think John Goodman's character is pretty lackluster thus far. 4 episodes in. Adam Devine, I've never really cared for him that much.
I love him, though. I love him. I loved him on Workaholics. I've seen some of the Pitch Perfect movies. I thought he did a spot-on job when he was involved with that. Whether it was Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, I think he's done a pretty good job in whatever you've put him in. I think he plays a great character. He's obviously
the youth pastor.
Yeah. He's the youngest of all the Gemstones. He's the youngest pastor. Kelvin is his name in the show. He's got really weird relationship with his friend Keith, who is a former devil worshiper.
Yeah.
I love his house though, with all the video games and stuff in his living room, and
he's a big child.
Oh yeah, he's just a giant child. And his hairdo, dude, with that front spike that he has going on or whatever. He's wearing the deep V's and the cross.
He's such a douchebag is what he is.
It's awesome.
And in this most recent episode, there's a character and he makes fun of him and he goes, "What are you, 40 years old or something?" And he's, "No, I'm in my late 20s." But he just looks like a fool. Danny McBride's character, I mean, he's definitely Danny McBride.
He looks
his name.
Got a little bit of an Elvis look to him in the sense that he's got that curly
sideburns.
Yeah, the sideburns. He's graying in the show. Then the second episode, they mistake him as Adam Devine, meaning as Kelvin. Of course, Danny McBride is playing the older brother Jesse here in this movie in the show. But Jesse's basically, you could say, the next in line to Eli, which is played by John Goodman. But I mean, at the same time, it's just they feel like they're just this family that's above everybody else. And it doesn't seem to matter who, but I mean, you think Eli is the true patriarch, though. Most importantly, he is. Everything's got to channel through him. You look at the episode where they go out to family lunch and, family brunch, I should say, after church brunch. We got to go to church brunch. And, he's definitely the patriarch of the family. Very soft spoken, but when he does speak, his words are usually pretty well imposed on people.
I feel like at some point in this series, we're going to learn something really dark about him, or he'll do something very dark. Because that's the thing is, these people, this family rather, is this, big, we'll put quote, religious family. They just use it to make a ton of money. And John Goodman's character, Eli, he runs the show. You could see, I mean, right off the bat, we're just going to go ahead and spoil the very first episode. I mean, you might as well. It's what makes it interesting is, it starts out as they're, this perfect little religious family. You can kind of see the hints and how they poke fun at religion and these big churches that take all this money. And then at the very end, Danny McBride's character is being blackmailed. He was at a strip club with a couple of his friends, Chad being one of them, he's got a decent role in episode 4. But, it shows him doing drugs and, titties and everything all around.
Wieners out.
Yeah. So, they get blackmailed. And at the very end of it, Danny McBride, kills 3 people or attempts to.
Well, 2 people. Yeah. He thinks he kills 2 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually ends up happening with his brother, Kelvin, and his sister, Judy, who is constantly, left behind. She's basically, to me, I don't know. I didn't want to necessarily call her.
Edie Patterson is who's playing Judy in the show. I wasn't very familiar with her because I'm newer to HBO. I've just now finally locked in HBO in the past 2 to 3 years. But she was on Vice Principals with Danny McBride. I feel like she's the quiet, funniest person in the show, or everything she does is just good.
Yeah, you and I agree on that. I was just saying, to me, she's almost like a Jerry character from Parks and Rec. They just keep ignoring everything she has to say. But
or even Jerry from Rick and Morty.
Yeah, that works too. And then she has her husband or boyfriend at the time.
Yeah,
whatever,
her fiance
BJ.
is BJ. He's played by Tim Baltz, and he looks like the typical just moron. Just kind of fits in with the family type of character. And this, of course, this show is taking place in South Carolina. So of course it fits the bill of your typical evangelical preacher being from the South. All the characters I feel like that they've cast for the show, or all the people to play these characters, I feel like have done such a good job. I mean, you even think of a character like Dermot Mulroney. He's playing, of course, Reverend John Wesley. Reverend Wesley took a couple of other reverends from Locust Grove. Unless there's another Locust Grove I'm not aware of. You normally visit Locust Grove on your way north to Atlanta, and said, hey, please don't build your sanctuary down here. We already have, these 4 churches. They're doing really well. And this was the first time, like you said, you kind of want to see Eli turn evil. I feel like Eli already has. He's shown that he has this thumb he rules with. And he's like, we're not going to not go in there. We're going to go in there and we're going to take from your parishioners. We're going to go take your people.
Well, he is who he is, but I'm saying, to me, there almost seems a darker role. I really like Judy's character. She's a goofball, and I like Keith, and he's just super lethargic and what seems to be in love with Kelvin.
Yes.
And, he used to be a Satanist, and he's got a decent role.
He's got the upside down cross and the 666 tattooed on his chest.
It's fantastic. They're both good characters. I enjoy the characters, but there hasn't been much to me that I think is that funny. Or even the story it was very apparent of who, the person blackmailing them was, at least to me.
You figured it out pretty early on. I, unfortunately, with having the baby, I'm just oblivious to things that are just so common these days. And I'm watching the whole entire episode, and, the normal connection clues, the context that you're supposed to take from these clues, that normal people are getting, I'm just completely having them go over my head. And I remember watching it with Tiffany, and Tiff's like, oh, I know who the other guy is then. And I'm like, damn it, of course you do, because you watched it with a little bit more sleep than I have had, even though we're both not sleeping much because of Emery, but that doesn't matter. Gideon, obviously, is the oldest son of Danny McBride's character, of course, Jesse Gemstone. Gideon is I'm doing air quotes, he's supposedly a Hollywood stuntman. We haven't really seen that too much, at least through episode 3. But again, he's trained in martial arts, and then there's a big fight scene, and I did not put 2 and 2 together to realize that, he all along was involved with this group that were blackmailing him.
Yeah, which you find out at the end of the first episode, I believe, was it?
Second
episode, okay. Yeah, but at any rate, I think, so for me, initially after the third episode, I think it was, I told you that I didn't really care for it, and I still kind of don't, but at the same time, those more serious moments that are in it are what's kind of keeping me into it. At the very end of this 4th episode, Danny McBride he's being real serious about some shit, and for the most part, it's 28 minutes of goofball humor, and it's not that I'm opposed.
It's dark, man. It's a dark show. I mean, it's not the darkest of dark humor, but it's a dark show.
No, so I start to enjoy that. So I'm gonna end up totally finishing the season, and I think if you don't really have anything to watch right now, it's definitely worth checking out, because I think some people are either going to like it or they're going to hate it. And I mean, I'm kind of in between. I'm like, yeah, there's some moments I like, and I know it's not bad enough for me to not want to watch it. And it also just got renewed for season 2.
It did. You were telling me that it just got signed on. This isn't quite as I mean, I'm sure it's controversial like Good Omens has been, in the sense that obviously it's really exploiting faith and communionship and whatnot. But at the same time, I mean, obviously they're not involving too much of, you could kind of say like the devil involved, demons involved and stuff. I mean, they kind of, obviously Cassidy Freeman, who plays Amber Gemstone, Jesse Gemstone's wife, she's like, oh, you had the devil in you for there a minute, sweetie. You were challenging me for what I had to say.
She does a really good job.
She does a really nice job too. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is sexism. Obviously sexism within, I guess you could say within religion, within that family. Like, what are your thoughts when you, obviously you have the first episode when they're having the argument, obviously at brunch, and Amber Gemstone says, baby, do I have the pleasure, am I allowed to speak? And obviously Edie Gemstone sits there and she says, like, daddy slapped me, like, pay attention to me. Like, you never let me go out with you guys.
I feel like it's almost supposed to be representative to an older traditional church style family who kind of, the male is the higher figure.
They're stuck in their ways.
Yeah, kind of thing. But I don't know, because there's a little bit as well in the 4th episode here. And it's all like Danny McBride keeps saying, oh, you're a cool wife. That's why you don't care about this shit, And
yeah,
I mean, it is what it is. I can't remember what
Now, there's another big character that we haven't really brought up yet. Walton Goggins, he plays Baby Billy in this show. Walton Goggins, for our listeners, you will probably recognize him being in the fact that he was on some people's favorite show, Sons of Anarchy. He was also involved with Justified, another FX show. And then very lastly, like kind of most recently, I feel like what he was really involved in that kind of people paid attention to is, of course, he's now getting involved a little bit with Tarantino. So he was in The Hateful Eight and he was in Django and everything. But Walton Goggins, obviously does a really good job as Baby Billy Freeman. Baby Billy takes over the parish that they end up building in a Sears in Locust Grove. And, he is definitely very old fashioned. He's dating a much younger woman. I don't know. His character is just a little over the top, I feel like.
I agree. He's also an older man.
Yes.
In that show. I mean, I think in real life he's like 47. He's never really like a main character either. He's always a supporting role. But, I mean, that's not a big deal. He does a good job so far. He is a total the whole family's a wacko.
Yeah.
Or they're all weird anyways. It's interesting. And like you were saying before, I mean, I can't think of anything right now that has done something like this before, and that's what I like about it. I don't think it would fly on regular cable TV.
It would not.
That's why it's on HBO.
Yeah.
But I like that somebody is attempting it. I'm like I said, I'm not opposed to it thus far. It's definitely, I don't think it's as funny. I don't know what it's supposed to be. I mean, if you look it up, maybe it's classified as a comedy, but to me, it's just,
I feel it has to be a comedy, has to be drama. Like there has to be a drama involved in it. You could kind of say suspense or thriller at different times, just based on the information. But again, this is a very big televangelical family. Obviously they are just, again, involved with a mega church. You look at their church, it's like a fucking stadium, dude. Like
it's unreal.
It's unreal the amount of people that they get in there. And it's crazy to me, because you think like, oh, this is ridiculous. But then this is also real life.
Well, it's like Joel.
Yeah.
What the hell's his name?
Oh my God! Why are we pausing right now with him? Yeah, when Katrina happened and he didn't want anybody to stay there in that church. Yeah, what a joke that was. And of course he writes
Osteen. Okay,
Joel Osteen.
I kept wanting to say Epstein, but I'm like, no.
Yeah, you're fine. I don't know why I drew a blank on his last name either. Osteen, like, you think of the fact that he doesn't want people to be there. You're a man of God. Like, how are you not gonna be a shepherd and put people in there and obviously let them sit and wait out everything? I don't know. That's another story for another day. We don't need to go into the hypocrisy of certain sects of religion and certain parts of the church. I feel like it's gotten a good acclaim. I know that you're not high on this show, and I understand that, and I respect it, because I've fought with you numerous times on why I don't think Game of Thrones is as good as everyone else does. I like the fact that you're kind of against me on this, too. It makes me feel kind of good, like there is something I really like that you're not big on. It is really well acclaimed right now. IMDb has rated it with an 8.1 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, I get it, it's a 78%, but I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, of course, that flies. But I mean, I will say, like, I did feel emphatically when I watched the first episode, I was like, this was kind of like a rocky boat, right? I just thought it was all right. It was all right. It was all right until the scene where they ran the guys over. I mean, then I lost it laughing, dude. I was dying. I was laughing so hard.
No, and I would agree. And that's what I was saying in the sense of the first, episode, hour long, I'm watching, and for the first 30, 40 minutes or so, I'm just into it for what it is, because you haven't seen people really mock them like this before.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is cool. I like the concept. And then as it kept going, I'm like, okay, it's not as great. And then, they basically try to commit murder. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, that's picking up a little bit. And then the second episode just got really slow. And I'm like, this is just, I've seen it before, because all his shit is the same. And it's nothing to him. He's a funny guy. It's just like Will Ferrell. If you've seen a Will Ferrell movie, you've seen them all.
Well, there's stock characters that these guys create. There's very similar characters. I mean, this is why we feel like Adam Sandler is stale now. Why we think that Adam, obviously not just Adam Sandler, but, your Will Ferrells, your Seth Rogans, why after a period of time these guys become stale, because you can only play that same stock character so many times before someone goes, I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it. It's almost like in South Park when they did the whole Simpsons did it. Simpsons did it. Now, I will say this, one of the things that I've noticed, because, you think of sin, right? You think of the 7 deadly sins. You think of, obviously, commandments. You think of all the different biblical things. I feel like the one thing this family deals with, not only greed, of course, is the biggest, right? They're very greedy people. Obviously, the amount of money that they take from obviously the people that come and show up for worship services, it's insane, dude. It looked like a money laundering ring after the one service that they did. But the anger, right? Like their, obviously their anger and their hubris, their arrogance. You know what I mean? They're very arrogant people, and they're very angry people. I mean, you look at the scene where John Goodman gets so upset he throws a potato through the window of obviously the church in Locust Grove.
They're so power hungry because they're such a powerful family and they're famous for what they are. So they're super wealthy and they have the power. There's a lot of reference to the wife or the mother, and we still don't know a whole lot about it. Even in this current episode, we're 4 episodes in, and it's still, mom, my grandma, mother, this and that. So I feel like some more backstory about that'll come up.
Yeah, and Eli, I mean, you watch all the times where Eli will sit there and he'll say how much he misses her, and he'll turn on like the VHS tapes of them back in the day, like when they first got together and they were doing their evangelical stuff. It's really crazy to me. Televangelist stuff, my apologies there. It's really crazy because you're right. They really haven't got too much into the mom, but it just seems as if it's a stock, you think of like a family, and it seems like the mom might have been the glue that kept them together. Is the way that this story is unfolding, is that while she was there, she could keep all of these different personalities, all of these different people under wraps, right? Like she could kind of be the glue to keep them together. But now that she's passed on,
Seems like they're all falling apart.
Yeah, they're all falling apart. They're all having their own agendas in a sense. I mean, there's very few moments where they all kind of get back together and remember that they're family and that they care about each other. I mean, otherwise it seems like they're nitpicking. I mean, I remember, the point where they're like, Uncle Billy obviously said like Uncle Billy asked how you're doing, and we told him like you're spaced out, like you look like you're on Zoloft or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
walking Zoloft commercial.
Walking Zoloft commercial, exactly. And you sit there and you hear things like that, and it's like, man, like you're saying that about your dad. You're saying that about the person that you're like your last of your of course parents that are here. But then, of course, they have the reconciliation scene. I feel like that's the one thing is it's almost like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they mess a bunch of stuff up, but then they still reconcile with each other.
For sure. And that was pretty much episode 4, right? Like some stuff gets uncovered and everything's falling apart and they fix it at the end. There's definitely going to be a lot more to it. And I feel like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of difficult to say. I don't really think it's just going to be a church against a church. I feel like something else is going to pop up for sure.
It's going to be them against a lot of people, I feel like. The one cool thing is you've got through 4, I've got through 3. We got 9 episodes, so I'm a third of the way. You're almost halfway there as far as watching the episodes go. Are there any things that you really feel like you would love to see happen before the season ends? Like, is there anything that you kind of would like to see the show sway with? Like another funny, crazy scene? Like, do you want to see Gideon get exposed? Do you not want to see Gideon exposed? I mean, that's another big thing to think about.
You know what I would actually want, and I'm sure it would never happen, is for one of the main family members to be killed. I think that would be kind of intense and add a little bit more to it. Because like I said, for me, like I said, nothing against Danny McBride. I like a lot of his stuff. I could see some jokes that were kind of rehashed from other series and stuff like that, and that's not a problem. That's what people like. But like for me, when he is at his serious moments, that's when I'm most interested. So I would like it almost to be a little more serious.
I love the jokes. I love the humor. I mean, this is what I live for is new comedies that I really enjoy. This is why I think I really like The Boys a lot, is because even though obviously there's so much action, gore, all the different elements that were put into that show, I love the comedy that was involved in it. So that's what I like Gemstones for. I'm a huge fan of physical comedy. So again, as soon as that van ran those people over, it was beautiful. It's just like watching Jackass. You can't help but love watching people get hurt. It's just that's something I've always been a fan of. Love low bro comedy. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of scatological humor. Dick and fart jokes, the whole 9 yards. I appreciate that very much. I just hope that for the next few episodes, it keeps me interested, because that's something that's been a little bit of a disappointment for you and I in some of the shows HBO has put out. I know for me, we've talked about it on our previous podcast. We both think season 1 of True Detective is one of the best narratives ever written. Season 2, we both sat there and we tried so hard to like it, but you just can't, like as much as you want to, you just can't. And then I feel like they definitely redeemed themselves with season 3. They did a real nice job with that. But most importantly, man, we got some big stuff coming up on HBO, whether it be the end of this year, early next year. Again, I've talked about it, here and there. Something that's very similar to The Boys. We have The Watchmen coming out, another dark show about superheroes.
Yeah, The Watchmen looks pretty good. I'm actually looking forward to that.
The Watchmen looks dark, dude. That doesn't just look good. It looks dark.
No, and I'm all for it. I really enjoyed the movie. I know a handful of people didn't, but
I feel like the people that really love the graphic comic, that, when you talk to them about their opinions, they said, well, they didn't do this and that and this and that, which tends to be typical. You always hear from comic people that they wish something was different, and it's understandable. It's something you grew up with and you loved. So we can understand if someone drops the ball. It's one of the main reasons why I don't particularly care for the Harry Potter movies, is because I understand they're large books, but at the same time, they have to leave out stuff. A lot of times I feel like they leave out some stuff they really shouldn't.
Are you going to watch The Deuce, which is a drama about porn in the 1970s?
I feel like that'd be a good show to watch.
Yeah.
I think it's already on, though, is it not?
I think it may have started as well. I'm just curious. Yeah. 2 days ago as it started, actually. Season 3, by the way.
Yeah. And that's, why can't I think of his name right now?
All I know is it has Maggie Gyllenhaal in it. I don't like her.
You're not a fan of Maggie Gyllenhaal?
Not really, no, but it is what it is.
Isn't Franco in there? I'm sorry. I don't know why I couldn't spell James. Yes, that's James Franco show. Okay, cool. There's also the one about the hotel room in New York. That
104.
Yep, that one looks like it would be phenomenal. I know there are several seasons in. Again, this is on me, listeners. I finally started getting HBO and subscribing. Not too recently, but not too far away. Had it long enough to finish Game of Thrones with my brother and his girlfriend, or my brother and my girlfriend. They liked the last season. Not. They were definitely disappointed. I know you said you were. But no, HBO obviously tunes out a lot of stuff. Like, they churn out a lot of stuff. They produce a lot of their own stuff. It's really critically acclaimed, it seems like. It's easily one of those things where if you get offered to get it for $5, $10 more a month, I feel like a lot of times people will just take it, not only because of the movies it offers, but the shows.
Yeah, HBO is pretty good, man. And that's the thing, is I used to be kind of opposed to it. And then they came out with the HBO Now, so then you could just download it as a standalone app and things like that. The only thing I don't like is that they do the weekly periodic episodes, but now, Disney's going to be doing that, and even Netflix is going to be doing it with their more popular shows.
I heard that. I was wondering what your take would be on that. How are you feeling about that?
I hate that, but to me, it makes perfect sense, because the whole thing is everybody pays monthly, right? So if you pay for it and you keep it consistently, for the most part, you can watch like Stranger Things. What was that, 8 episodes? I don't even. It might have been less.
However many episodes, you watch it immediately, instantly. It's there.
So now the whole thing will be, you make sure to spread it out over at least 2 months. Maybe all of a sudden there's a delay 1 week, so it gets pushed another month. So you'll have to pay for it for 3 months. I don't like that. I like to sit there and binge watch so you can really get into the show and have everything fresh into your mind. It has nothing to do with the instant gratification. It has to keep my attention span. Like I said, for me, Gemstones, I actually didn't even care enough to keep watching these episodes. I just keep seeing articles about it, and then I go, oh yeah, I forgot that.
Oh yeah, we started watching this.
Yeah, and so I was like, I think a new episode came out yesterday, and then I looked and it was like 3 days ago. So it's just one of those things. I would much rather prefer to sit there and watch everything, but either way, it hasn't been too bad.
Yeah, I agree.
HBO is worth a rental.
Absolutely. And just a couple of big characters that are going to be in The Watchmen that are standing out to me. Sir Jeremy Irons will be in the show. Obviously, fantastic actor. He's done a lot of stuff throughout his career. I say sir, I mean, I don't even know if they knighted him in England yet. They probably haven't because, you never know who the Queen likes and doesn't like. But, of course, Jeremy Irons, famous for voice acting in The Lion King. That's something that was big for him. But he's been in Die Hard movie. He's involved in Batman and Superman. Tim Blake Nelson, as soon as I saw him cast, he's being casted in the show. I was excited. Obviously, Tim Blake Nelson was recently in the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. That was hilarious. His little part of that movie. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, of course, as Donnie. So that'll be fun to see him involved with that.
I hated that movie, by the way.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
You're a scumbag.
I don't understand why people like it so much.
What a great movie. Regina King seems like she is the main protagonist, which is phenomenal to see a female protagonist for a show like this. This is great. Regina King was a voice actor in the Boondocks. Obviously, she's been in classics for us like Friday. We love Friday. What a great movie. All-time great movie. And then, of course, very lastly, I mean, there's other people like Louis Gossett Jr., there's other people that are going to be involved in this that are, good actors and everything. But Don Johnson is involved in this. Mr. Miami Vice himself should be interesting because he's playing a police officer in this show. I feel like he's going to be a fuckface. I feel like people are going to just generally hate him.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty excited. It seems like they've got some pretty solid acting in this show. Again, a very, very dark take on superheroes. It'll be something that you and I will definitely watch and we'll definitely be talking about later on in this podcast. But no, for our dollar's worth, I mean, HBO is definitely worth having. And if you haven't picked up the Gemstones just yet, it's not a bad time because you can go back and binge watch a little bit, start back with 1 and get up to 4.
For sure.
There's a lot of likable characters in this show. At least for me, I know for you, you're the lone wolf in this one. And as far as I'm concerned, where you're kind of thinking, meh, more than everybody else. Everybody else I've talked to has been like, yeah, dude, I can't wait to watch all the whole series and enjoy it. But we need to just real quickly, make sure that we give credit where credit's due in this show. Your favorite person, favorite character, favorite moment in this show. Like what is the one redeemable character, person, moment that makes you feel like, you know what, even if you're not caring that much for it, that you're going to at least go back to see more of this?
Honestly, it's Keith, the Satanist,
Keith?
And it's because he's just so weird. He's just such a fucking weirdo.
Anthony Cavallero. Yeah.
And he's so lethargic and like he does these weird things. So for example, I mean, I'll spoil a weird little episode for you in episode 4 because a lot of it has to do with Kelvin and him. They try to, save a family friend's daughter from the dark path, and they're like investigating her room and trying to throw away all these things that they consider, Satanist or that'll steer her towards the wrong path. And they're throwing things out and they're like, this isn't good. They're throwing sexy lingerie away and stuff like that. And then Keith goes, wait a minute, Calvin, I think I got something. And he's like, what do you got there, Keith? And he reaches down and he goes, it's a condom. And he pulls it up and he goes, it looks like it's used, I'm sorry to say. And Calvin's just like, put that down, drop that, get rid of that. So he drops it and he drops it on his shoe. And Calvin's like, dude, put it in the trash. And he's just looking around like a dope. He's like, what? Oh, whoop. Reaches down, picks it up, puts it in the trash, and Calvin's like, don't touch it like that. And then he starts wiping it on his pants, and he's like, Keith, don't wipe it on your pants. And he's just such a weirdo.
He is such a weirdo, dude.
I want to see more of that character progression.
When he looks at him and he goes, when Keith looks right at Kelvin and goes, I would die for you.
Yeah.
Just the little things. Then he's like, he's spotting them and his balls are hanging out in his face.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
That was kind of funny. That's what I mean. It's just weird stuff.
So you're back for Keith. I actually like Judy a lot. I know we talked about it previously. I like Judy a lot. I think her character is great. She's very slept on by the family. They just kind of push her off to the side. But even in the first episode, you find out that this whole entire time, obviously, she's been hiding money separately from everybody. They have no idea about it. She's been hiding it off in basically actually in a duct that's in the children's room within the church. Obviously lots and lots and lots of money, for lack of a better term, she's been putting up there. And again, it's one of those things where, like you said, you can kind of associate her to like a Jerry character, whether it's a Jerry from, of course, Rick and Morty, or a Jerry from Parks and Rec. Nobody takes her that seriously when she talks, but she's definitely one of the family. And, she's almost, in a weird way, she's kind of one of the boys, like the way she talks, like how vulgar she can be, with all the different things she does. So I like her character a lot. She's one of my main reasons why I want to come back. But to me, the thing that sold me for the whole show, like, I had to keep watching after they ran those two fuckers over with the car. I mean, these are like what they drive, are Mercedes SUVs or Audi SUVs, wherever they are. It
might be a Range Rover that they're driving.
Yeah, just these beautiful white SUVs, and they have a whole bunch of them. Like the compound that they live in, like they live in a compound. Like, let's be honest, they live in a compound. There is a giraffe that's in the air, like that they have in the compound. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of money this family has and the amount of power. But no, like you just said, we're both big John Goodman people. Obviously, Big Lebowski being one of our all-time favorite movies. I feel like I'm just keeping on watching too, to see how Eli's character is going to progress, to see how much more evil and manipulative he can become. Obviously, as the show goes on. But I've really thought, again, I think that there are spots where it's not as consistent, I suppose you can say, but that can happen with any television show, whether it's, comedy, drama, whatever it may be. But I think it's definitely redeemable, worth watching. And yeah, I think Judy's my character. I watch for. Keith, I know, like you said, is your character. They're definitely both quirky as shit, but overall, it's a fun and enjoyable show if you guys get going on to it.
No, like I said, I like both of those characters, and I like the whole concept. It's not particularly my kind of humor. I mean, there's been a couple of moments I've chuckled at, and like I said, I'm more into more of the serious moments because I like the story that could be behind it, but then there's some other parts and just like the story sucks. But for each their own. We're 4 episodes in now, so now would be a time to check it out. You can binge watch 4 episodes and be like, hey, this is pretty cool. Or you can go, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah. Yep. Either we're right or we're wrong, but that's all right. We know nothing in the long run.
Yeah. I know this was a quick one, dude. So
yeah,
I guess that's going to be it for this moment. And we don't plan to just sit here and talk about TV shows or things like that. I know it just kind of seems to keep happening here, but it was just a relatively interesting show that we just started watching, and we figured we'd throw out our thoughts.
Yeah, we got one on the chalk coming up. We've been spitballing an idea at this. Jacob's not much of a concert person, whereas I am. I've been to way too many. I couldn't even tell you guys the amount of money I've dropped to pay money to see live music. It's exorbitant, whether it be on buying merch, buying, food or liquids, and of course, just again, gate price, parking price, whatever it may be. But one of the big things that you and I have been discussing internally is trying to get this expanded a little bit out away from the television shows. And with my love for rock and roll music, your love for rock and roll music, but my love for concerts, I think what we're going to do is we're going to finally get to the table and sit down and discuss something that is kind of a dying breed, which is you can kind of say it, the Summer Festival or the Rock and Roll Festival. It was just announced recently here, I believe yesterday, in fact, that the one and only, it's going to be, I believe, Weezer and Fall Out Boy and Green Day will all be on tour together.
Can I just say that I can't stand that cover of Africa by Weezer?
It's, we were pounding Africa before Africa got pounded again, and I don't even listen to it anymore. I like, it's so sad how much it's like, I don't even want to listen to it because
I still like it, but it's that cover I just think is trash.
Well, I'm a Weezer guy. I saw Weezer years ago. I haven't seen Fall Out Boy, and I can't tell you all how long. And I never saw Green Day because I never cared to. I think that's pretty fascinating that all 3 of them are going to be together. I remember when I was in high school, it was like Blink-182, Green Day, and I want to say New Found Glory were all together. So it kind of reminds me of this all over again, but like 20 years later, it seems like. That'll be good for rock music. What I just did was I went last week and I attended Slipknot's music festival. They had a few other bands with them, including Volbeat, who I'm not big on. Hadn't seen Slipknot and couldn't tell you guys how long either, but that was fun to see a bunch of guys banging on some percussions and stuff. But no, we're going to talk about the viability of, summer music festivals. Obviously Warped Tour's gone now, and the people that just started the Rockstar Disrupt Fest, they also just claimed bankruptcy. So seems like it's a dying breed to have rock and roll summer music festivals. Like, they're going to be a thing of the past here. But no, Jake and I have various interests that we really like to talk about and we enjoy. Sometimes we just don't overlap, unfortunately, which is always the same thing in any friendship. But really, we thank you guys for coming back for episode 3.
Yeah, and if you happen to care about sports at all or want to hear us ramble a little bit more, we have another podcast, There's Always Next Season, where we constantly talk about sports.
But other than that, we got nothing else for you guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening.